1. In the latter half of the 19th century, in a little town called Amherst in Nova Scotia, a woman named Esther Cox was beset by what she claimed were poltergeists. Esther lived in a house with her sister and her family. After Esther had been nearly killed by a male friend of hers, who may have suffered a psychotic break, her house began to be haunted. After spending some time at another sister's house in a nearby province, because of her failing health, Esther returned to Amherst, whereupon the haunting began again. After the poltergeists threatened to burn down the house, Esther moved in with another family, whose house became haunted as well. Part-time actor Walter Hubble moved in with Esther, as he was also an occasional paranormal investigator. He investigated the house for a number of weeks, eventually writing a popular book about his experiences, in which he claimed to have seen floating objects as well as attacks on Esther by unseen forces. To date, no explanation has been given, though some who've investigated the stories believe it was all a hoax by Esther. 2. Sightings of this particular phenomenon go back as far as 1811, and occur in the Hessdalen Valley, which is in the middle of Norway. However, in the early 1980s, the lights became much more frequent, with a peak of nearly 20 separate reports each week. Since then, the sightings have decreased in frequency, with observations numbering 10 to 20 per year. Normally, the lights are either bright white or yellow, and hover above the ground. Various scientific studies have been commissioned to find out the source behind the lights, but no conclusive explanation has been found. There are cameras stationed around the valley, set up to take pictures of any bright light. Studies meant to refute some of the findings have pointed out a variety of logical explanations, including car headlights and mirages, though they admit that such things don't necessarily explain every occurrence. 3. The Guadalupe Mountains, located in West Texas and southeastern New Mexico, are said to be home to some of the richest gold mines in the world. A fact alleged by the famous Apache Geronimo Ben Sublet, an old miner who lived during the 19th century, was supposed to have found a vein of gold, one so valuable, he could mine $10,000 worth of gold in a week. Unfortunately, the only evidence of his mine is a single hole in the ground, which is not much bigger than a man. Long seen as a drunk and a liar, Sublet came into his local tavern one night, throwing down a handful of nuggets, and proclaiming drinks were on him. A number of unsuccessful efforts were made to pry the secret from him, and attempts were made to follow him to his secret mine, but they were met with a business end of his rifle. Even when Sublet's young son asked where the gold was located, Sublet told him to find it himself, like his father did. To this day, no one knows where the mine is located, and scientists don't believe large gold veins are even located in the Guadalupe Mountains. 4. Angela Geely Robel was a young woman who grew up in Germany in the early 20th century. Her life was cut short when she allegedly committed suicide on September 18, 1931. The gun she used belonged to her half-uncle and rumored lover, Adolf Hitler, known as Uncle Alfie to his niece. Hitler entranced the young woman with his celebrity. Since they first became involved, just as the Nazis were rising to power, Roble traveled with the Führer all over the countryside, eventually moving into Hitler's mansion in Munich as a housekeeper. During their time together, Hitler exalted his niece as a paragon for all Aryan women, though some didn't see her that way. One rival called her an empty-headed little slut who manipulated Hitler. Reports of the pair fighting the night before her death were said to have centered on Roble's wish to travel to Vienna to get engaged to another man. After her suicide, Hitler's people put forth the explanation that Roble had shot herself because she was nervous about an upcoming music recital, which was widely discredited. No note was ever discovered, and there were reportedly numerous injuries found on Roble's body, including a broken nose. A firestorm of controversy erupted, but was quickly silenced by the Nazis' political influence, as well as their threats of litigation. Nevertheless, rumors dogged Hitler for years that he had in fact murdered Roble. A journalist who was investigating the circumstances surrounding her suicide was arrested by the Nazis just before he was to publish his findings. He was executed months later at Dachau. With that last death, any investigations into the truth of the matter were abandoned, and we may never know what truly happened to Julie Roble. 5. Julia Wallace was a British housewife who lived at 29 Wolverton Street in Liverpool. On January 19, 1931, her husband William went to the local chess club for a regular game. When he arrived, he was told a message was left for him by a man named Qualtra, a name William didn't recognize, telling him to go to 25 Menlove Gardens East. The next day, William did just that, leaving his wife at home. He ultimately discovered it was a phony address. Having spent nearly an hour wandering up and down the road despaired, William went home, where he was shocked to discover his wife's bloody, beaten corpse lying in their parlor. Police arrested William about 2 weeks later, convinced he had left himself a phony message, as the call came from a box only a few hundred yards from his chess club. Even though most of the evidence against him was circumstantial, William was convicted and sentenced to death. William's case was brought up to the Court of Criminal Appeal, which rarely overturned jury decisions. However, the court decided this case warranted it, and William was set free. To this day, no other person has been charged with the crime, and it remains unsolved.